if people review guns and they never have any problems whatsoever,
Bad sign.
I would have an issue with that because, man, we have problems frequently.
Welcome back to Whiskey and Windage, the two-way podcast for the people, by the people. I'm your host, Adam, joined with my co-hosts, Mike and Matt. Gentlemen, how are we doing today?
Man, we're doing good. I'm just great weekend, great time with the family, waiting on our guest to load in. I'll let Matt spill the beans on who that is. But yeah, once he's in, we'll be ready to go. But we're just patiently waiting, man.
Oh yeah, pretty excited about today's show. I just got back from a big long vacation way up north in Kanadistan. A little bit of a different culture up there, but
hello, Terrence.
Not too bad.
Hello, Philip.
Yeah, hello, Terrence. Hello, Philip. It was just like that. But finally made it back to the States safe. And right now we are patiently waiting for Sean from Pew Pew Tactical to load in, and looks like he's coming around. So we'll get right to it.
We interrupt our program to bring you this important message.
And for today's 2A Spotlight for Whiskey and Windage, we're graced with the presence of a pretty popular guy on YouTube, Mr. Sean from Pew Pew Tactical. Sean, how are you doing today?
I'm good, guys. Thanks for having me. I appreciate you having me on.
Oh yeah, thanks for being here.
Yeah, we appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, this my first question is actually it's a soft spot because my dad was law enforcement. He's still here, but my dad was law enforcement, career, retired. Tell me about your career in law enforcement and how did it lead you? I guess what led to you starting to write and create a role at Pew Pew Tactical?
Yeah, it's that's a great question, man, because it's kind of a long story. But in order for me to get into law enforcement, I have to go back to my childhood. Growing up, some of the things that I saw and experienced. You look at law enforcement and you look at the people who do it and the motivations behind why they would do it, and a lot of times it's damage. And I mean that with the absolute utmost respect because I made a almost 23-year career out of it, and witnessing domestic violence growing up as a kid, witnessing violence, just family violence. And then I had a bully in grade school. And like 5th, 6th grade, I had a bully who, would pick on me and physically assault me. And I finally had, my parents sit me down and just say, look, you need to stop that. And I know we've always told you not to fight in school, don't get into fights, but you need to stop that. And so there came a day.
I'm getting flashbacks of that video of the movie Christmas Story when Ralphie goes crazy here.
You number damn nipple bang.
It was almost exactly like that.
Did you hear what he said? Holy smokes!
Because I had tears in my eyes and I chased the kid down after he hit me and I just knocked him down and wailed the tar out of him right in the middle of the soccer field. And something changed like in me, but it changed around the people who hung around me too. Like it was just different. And the next thing that I experienced was my parents telling me how proud they were. Now, for kids of a certain age, like if you're Gen X, they kind of call us the feral generation. Mike, you might know what I'm talking about if you were a latchkey kid or if your daddy didn't hug you.
He just called me old. Did y'all hear that shit?
I just love the fact that he assumed I wasn't old. That's
yeah, he was like, hey, Mike, you look old as hell. You know what I'm talking about.
I'm trying to relate here. I don't want to offend anybody.
No, none taken.
No, please offend Mike.
I'm the token old guy here most of the time.
Okay. The whole idea being that, when you didn't get a certain amount of affection or attention as a kid, and when you did get that attention, it was very important, right? Like my parents told me they were proud of me for sticking up for myself. And the next thing I knew, I encountered that bully again, picking on a friend of mine who called that friend a name that I didn't even know what it was. But I stepped up. I said, hey, he doesn't like that. And we fought again. And so I got that same reception from my parents. We're really proud of you. And that created a scenario where me stepping up for people was about love. It was rewarding, right? Like, and what I didn't realize is the harm, the hell that it would bring into my life. But it almost didn't matter because that kind of programmed me for a career like that. And where it started was, I was still in high school and I started volunteering for search and rescue because I lived in Southwest Colorado. And so we were in the mountains and had one of the busiest counties in the entire state. Just based upon statistics, we would have hunters come up every year from flatlands and want to chase a buck or an elk up into the high country, 12,000 feet sometimes. And they would have problems. They would break a leg, they would fall down, they'd get lost, you name it. And so I started volunteering there, and I even got my EMT and started working part-time on the ambulance service. And then the next thing you know, I became a reserve deputy. So that was the slow seduction. But there's a fun distinction between law enforcement and all the other sibling emergency response disciplines out there, right? We're talking about fire, we're talking about search and rescue, we're talking about EMS, and almost 100 times out of 100, if you're hurt, you're happy to see EMS roll up, right? If you are lost on a trail, holy cow, man, that person riding up on a horse who's got some power bars for you and some water, you're always happy to see them. And God forbid, your house lights on fire and somebody chops down your door and pulls you out to safety. You're always happy to see those folks. But where it gets complicated is
when the cops
that mom
get called,
who has too many drinks and is driving home with her kids. The husband who is abusive to his wife and has been for years and nobody's done anything about it. She may not even be happy to see you, even if you're trying to put a stop to it. So I learned pretty quickly that there was a huge distinction between those differences. But I started out as a reserve deputy and then eventually came on full time. And I'm just going to point out, I'm probably dating myself a little bit, but here's another part of the struggle of being in law enforcement is you don't get paid a whole lot. I was making $20,000 a year. And in the first 7 years, I can't tell you how many fights I was in. I got shot at. I'd been in a number of critical incidents. And I finally made sergeant. And I just realized, like, I'm starving to death here, going into debt and just really struggling. So left, went back to school, got a criminal justice degree because I figured, okay, I'm already committed to this. I've already got some time into it. Let me see if I can do a little bit better. Was a non-traditional student, and I got my associates in criminal justice. Came back to the same agency and hired in as a sergeant, but pretty quickly made lieutenant and then patrol commander. So while I was a patrol commander, I went ahead and got my bachelor's in public management and was responsible for patrol and for communications, and had some good leadership experience there. And then there were several, we had a multi-million-dollar deficit that was discovered, and a lot of people got laid off, including me. And so a lot of people got thrown to the winds, and I eventually landed at a district attorney's office as an investigator. And I did 7.5 years there, and 5 of those I strictly focused on SVU. What was kind of weird about the operational side of my career was I never really felt like I could get enough. I was certified as a Type 2 wildland firefighter. I was an EMT basic. I was a deputy. I was our SWAT commander. Like, if it had a light bar and siren on it, I probably drove it, flew it, or did something. And I was always opening up my chances because there's something really cool about taking utter chaos and disorder and trying to bring order to it. I didn't really get my fill of things until I got to SVU.
Well, I was going to say what I thought was really cool, though, and you dated yourself a little, but I think it's the truth. EMTs, they're paid pretty well for the most part, and the job is, like you said, people are happy to see you 99% of the time, and you're there to help and save people and fix people. Firemen, they got it easy, man. They work a day off too.
Someone in the comments. Someone in the
Work
comments.
a day off too. When the bell goes off, they're mad because they just left the grocery store and they were making this big spread and they were about to have a cookout. And it's like, dang, if we didn't get our dinner interrupted. But and I mean that with the most respect. But with the police officers, when I grew up, my father was a cop, like I said, but all the way up until I'd say late 90s, if you were law enforcement, it's because you wanted to be law enforcement and you had a calling, a higher calling, whatever you want to say, to protect and serve. Were there guys that thought they were Superman and one guy was going to change the whole town? Sure. And most of the time that guy found out real quick, you're not going to do it.
Yep.
But you had to want to do it because the pay wasn't great. I mean, you had a decent reputation depending on where you worked, but in some places you had a terrible reputation. No one wanted to see you. And so it had to be something you really wanted to do. So for the most part, if you were law enforcement, if you were a police officer during that time, it was because you really wanted to be. And, that's just respect. I mean, big respect on my part. So, I mean, I appreciate what you did.
I appreciate you saying that. I mean, you're absolutely right. I think it's a lot of people look at it as a calling, and there are some folks who get into law enforcement for the wrong reasons. I've seen them. Our hiring practices are supposed to help weed those out, and our disciplinary practices are supposed to help weed those out.
Not anymore. You see some of these guys get out, and I'm sitting there looking like, man, I'm 45, and I haven't ran. The last time I ran, something was probably chasing me.
Yeah.
Or the donut shop's about to close, right?
Right. And I'm like, hey, if I feel like I can outrun this guy.
Yeah.
After the academy and even during the academy now, it seems like the standards are dropping, and I understand it's for all people, and I'm not trying to go that route. But at the same time, I don't know. There's a select certain person that is meant for that job.
Sure, absolutely. But I think too, you have to be cognizant of the fact of what's going on in law enforcement right now.
Don't have anybody that wants to take that responsibility anymore. It's
like
no longer a fun job.
Yeah. And the people who are stepping up and saying, send me, they're not that many. And, there's a horrible old expression, but when all else fails, lower your standards. And
that's it.
Our hiring practices are absolutely the best tools that we have to make sure that we put the right people in those jobs. And unfortunately, I think Austin has 300 vacancies right now.
Wow.
I don't know about San Antonio as some of the other major areas, but almost everywhere across the country, hiring is down.
California is so bad that they're now allowing work visa immigrants to become law enforcement.
Sure.
And here's your gun and take it, even though you're not a citizen.
Yeah.
And people can have their own feelings on that whole portion of it, but it just goes to show that our own citizens are not wanting to do this because of the reputation that first responders are getting, unfortunately.
Yeah.
It sucks. You're taking the protection away from them. Now you can sue that individual. Like, if I know I can be sued individually for something, like what your mindset, I mean, I've never been a police officer, but I'm sure, like, think about when you were, if you knew everything you did, they could come after you personally for, would that have changed things you would have done?
I don't think it would have for me. I always appreciated the peace of mind that I was given. But, I always tried to focus on talking my way out of problems. And I was very successful at that.
De-escalation is most of the time your best friend.
Oh, yeah. And during that time when I went back to school, I was in Orlando, and I was very lucky because I joined a gym, and I was able to get into Gracie Jiu-Jitsu and into Muay Thai, and that, like, for the years that I was there, and then when I went back out on the road, everything was like, okay, this is going to be a piece of cake, and a lot of people, I think, figured that out, and so I didn't have to use it very often. There were a few rare occasions, usually foreign substances involved, but for the most part, yeah, it got to be pretty easy. And when you can approach people from that standpoint, and you're confident, and they can see that, then a lot of times that'll take the fight out of them.
Yeah, for sure. So how has that background, I guess now to segue over, how has that background in law enforcement shaped your belief and your ideals for the Second Amendment?
Yeah, I'll be happy to get to that. And I just realized that I didn't answer your first question, which was, how did we get to Pew Pew Tactical?
These old guys, I swear.
Let me backtrack on that.
Hey, you're just like,
These
you
old
look,
dudes.
you already fit in. You need a job, we'll pay you what we get paid. Like,
Yeah, we'll
we
pay you
talk
exactly
and then
what
we
we get
forget
paid.
what we talk about, and we just are like,
And then we
This
just
was-
ask the same
great
question over and over
podcast,
again.
guys. Did y'all answer any questions?
Yeah.
Nope.
Welcome.
No.
Welcome to Whiskey and Windage. Yeah.
Yeah, it's good. So it was about 2014. I got an email from an online publication called Police One, and they were looking for writers. And I thought, man, I've got a bunch of stories. You sit and talk to a cop for any length of time. If they've been on for a few years, they have got
my
hellacious
favorite.
stories that'll
My favorite.
just curl your hair. And I had an extremely diverse background because of all of the other things that I had done. So I contacted an editor and I said, hey, I'd like to respond to this. What kind of stories are you looking for? So the first one they asked me, because they learned that I was a coordinator for search and rescue. And they said, well, what if we did an article that offered the reader tips on how to best take care of yourself during a search and rescue event? Like, what are the things that are going to help you be found by a search and rescue professional? So I wrote that and gave it to them, and they published it. And I was like, oh, wow, I'm a published author, right?
Yeah,
And that was just the tip of the iceberg, man. It's kind of crazy looking back. The article did pretty well, got some decent comments, and then the editor came back and said, hey, how about we do more of these? And I'm looking in my mind, and it's like that final scene in Raiders of the Lost Ark where all the crates are back there. Here's all these ideas for stories and stuff that I've written. And I'm like, yeah, sure. So I did a couple more. They were published, and then I came back and I said, hey, how about we make this a paid gig? And they were like, yeah, that sounds good. And what happened is it slowly grew to where I got a dedicated column, and I was reviewing products. I was occasionally telling stories or giving informational articles like how to do this, that, or the other. And then I'd slowly get to go to other events too, like writer-specific events hosted by, partners in the industry who had products that they wanted to get out there. And then you meet other writers, and you get other opportunities to go out and work in other publications. So that's really how everything kind of fired up for me.
So you also wrote for other articles too. So I know you said Police One, but I did some research. You were writing for like multiple gun magazines, is correct? So how did that translate? How did you go from police to gun articles?
Yeah, so that was interesting, and like I said, it happened at an event. I met a gentleman named David Fortier, who's a legend in the gun writing world, and he's someone who's been doing it for decades. And I just showed up on the scene, right? And thankfully, he took a shine to me, and he'd answer my questions, and he would help me out with things and give me some perspective that I really didn't have a mentor. I was just figuring things out on my own as I went, and I made mistakes. I knew that I had to be as good as my word. I knew that I had to meet deadlines and make sure that I provided the product that I was going to say. And I knew early on, and it really wasn't even a question for me, but my integrity had to remain intact. This was not something that, someone wasn't going to send me a product and I recommend it to law enforcement officers out there and have it fail. So if something didn't work for me, then I was not going to in any way shill myself out or change something like that to make a buck, because law enforcement is it's a rough crowd, and you only get one chance at trust. And if you burn yourself there, you're done. So your integrity is like your virginity. And unlike your virginity, once
Adam
it's
lost
gone,
that a long time ago.
you're done. So basically, it started with that. I met people at other events, and they would offer me jobs. And the weird thing about it was, writing for Police One, cops are very direct as a general. I'm making a generalization here, but they want the information. They don't want a lot of fluff, not a lot of fanciness, no big words, not necessarily a bunch of pictures. They just want the information they want to get out. Like they got stuff that they got to do. So attention spans are short. When I started working for print publications, Dave Fortier introduced me to the editor of Gun World magazine. And that editor took me under his wing and told me how badly my photographs sucked, and gave me a bunch of tips and showed me.
This is sounding familiar.
Yeah, it was painful, but I learned a new medium, and pretty soon I was writing for Gun World magazine. Wrote for American Survival Guide, and I also wrote for the Glock Annual, and actually did some internal publications for a few different companies in the Second Amendment realm. So then I ended up writing for guns.com, another website. Pew Pew Tactical, I started writing for them in 2018. And it just kept going. Even I did a video for AR15.com pretty early on in the early stages. So each time you come to a new venue, you have to learn almost a new trade. It's still storytelling, but there's so many different things. Like, I really agonize with photographs. I'm still working on that. It's still a challenge, but going from writing articles to making videos, that was tough. That was really tough.
Oh, I bet.
That's interesting though, because like you're kind of the best of both worlds. Because I remember, I'm old enough to remember, like as a teenager, there wasn't a lot of stuff on the internet about guns. If you want to know about guns, you had to go get a magazine and read up on it.
Yeah.
There wasn't, YouTube wasn't around. I'm dating myself. I'm 40, so I'm dating myself. Like, I'm thumbs upping it now too. Apparently, it wasn't around. You had to get gun magazines, and honestly, I probably was reading some of your articles back in the day when I was in high school. Not that,
right?
And that's cool.
Right.
But like, now how did you like that transition from like that to now what you're doing? Like, how do you feel about that?
I'll be honest with you. I think there's nothing in the world like walking into a grocery store or a bookstore and looking on the magazine rack and seeing a cover of a magazine that has your article, and maybe it's listed on the cover page, and then walking over and picking it up and opening that and smelling that magazine and feeling those glossy pages and finding that picture that you took and those words that you wrote and put in there. It's really cool, but it is an older medium. And unfortunately, people are not reading as much as they were. I just read about a census poll that was taken over the course of like 84 to 2002. And the percentage of readers every year is going down almost 7%. Now, the population is growing exponentially. So the readership is kind of flatlining because the percentage is getting bigger, but the number of people who are reading are still going down.
Yeah.
So it's artificially supported. I think the thing that we're seeing nowadays is fewer people are going to read, period. Fewer people are going to read print publications, period. So to some degree, and took a recent college course on this and learned that media is always going to continue to evolve. So I think YouTube, for what we have right now, if we can continue to negotiate, if we can continue to represent ourselves and our community well, we'll still have a voice on video in this format. But we've got our work cut out for us just because of the political nature of things and how, our content is not popular. We don't always help ourselves in that world, but yeah, I think as long as we're there, we've still got a voice, because there's a lot of people who want to see, they want to learn about guns. And, I've even seen some grocery stores taking gun publications off the shelves.
Yeah.
They do that in response to shooting events or other things. And politics and business are having an effect on what we all do too. So there's a lot of different challenges to navigate out there.
I think what you just said is interesting, because I look at print media versus digital media as it is what it is. It's two entirely different pieces of media. And I could see how the admiration of seeing your article and your picture in print sitting on a shelf at a bookstore or at a grocery store gives you that certain feeling, and it makes you feel, wow. And that's an amazing feeling. I've experienced that and at an early age, but it was just like, wow.
It was Playgirl, but yours is Playgirl though.
Yeah. But that's where Adam said he was just there for the articles. But he was lying. But at the same time, it's, hey, if I write this article and I put it in this magazine, those who buy it are going to read it, and it is going to be appreciated.
Yep.
But at the same time, you can put that same article into a summary on a video. And unfortunately, in this day and age, unfortunately for print, you can reach 20 times the market.
Oh, yeah.
And so it's a different kind of celebration and admiration. It's, well, do you want a couple million views and impressions, or do you want, a couple tens of thousands that truly read it word for word?
Right.
And there's no wrong answer. It's two completely different types.
Yeah, and the other metric that I didn't mention is age, right? The people who are still reading things are traditionally older, and attrition happens. That's a thing. So that is going to slowly dwindle out too. And unfortunately, it's a rigged game. Yep. The benefits for digital content far outweigh the romanticism that I have with print publications, because if you look from the business standpoint, you've got, for print, you've got paper, you've got layout, which is a big one, and you've got editorial staff, and then you've got your circulation, right? Bookstores will buy X amount, but then they'll ship back whatever they don't sell. Your subscription numbers are really the only thing that you can push toward customers. Like the person with the company that has the flashy new gun or the hot new scope that you want to sell. So you can only tell them, look, we have this kind of circulation, we're selling this many people, but you don't know for sure if that's actually going to lead to a sale. There's no way to really drill down into that unless you go the digital route, like a hybrid route.
You could take, for example, just literature in itself. I mean, just look at I'm guilty, even though I hear it's nothing like the book. I mean, just when you break it into books, people will watch the movie. Yeah. I've never watched I've never read a single book when it comes to Harry Potter.
Yeah.
But I've seen all the movies.
Right.
And it's kind of that way across everything. People, whether it's guns and ammo, whether it's, any sort of hunting magazine, you're going to have more people watch the digital content now, unfortunately, because like you said, I mean, humans now, we have the attention span of, a gnat.
Yeah, basically that's what's going on. So unfortunately, like I said, it's kind of rigging the game to a series where we're forced into providing content on certain levels on the digital side, but then we have to navigate the people who control those outputs, right? Like the folks at YouTube who don't want us to talk about certain things, or don't want us to show a standard capacity magazine, or don't dare thread on a
standard?
suppressor.
That's for another time and date.
Yes.
I just had to throw that out there.
Some are longer than others.
That's true. That's true. That Mike and Matt know that. So.
Your mother's been telling you stories about me again, lad.
So
you got it.
Sean, before we segue, I want to, you hit something, and we, us three will never experience this, but you experience it. It's like, nowadays we all can create reels. We all create some great content. We can push it out, and I can get thousands of people to see it and heart it and tell me how great it is. But to walk into a store and see like my article, my photo on a magazine, my name on there, like that feeling, like we've kind of watered that down nowadays, because let's be honest, anyone can do it nowadays. You might not do it well, but you can do it, and you get a couple hearts. Like, I can only imagine how that felt to actually walk into like a Barnes and Noble or a grocery store and like see your work on a magazine. That must have been awesome.
Yeah. And like I said, Adam, the romanticism is still there. It's still a feeling for me because I paid my dues. I had people who, because I was still working at the DA's office while I was writing these articles, and I would have people come up to me and say, "Oh, it must be nice that you got this gun. It must be nice that you get this ammo, or you got that optic and you're going out and you get to shoot it." And I would say, I get the same 24 hours in the day that you do, asshole. I busted my ass working nights and weekends, and I would spend time away from my family to go out and do this. But I paid my dues, and I earned that spot. My first editor at Gun World, Rob, great guy. And he was brutally honest with me, and that's exactly what I needed. I don't know how a lot of people would deal with that kind of honesty these days from the things that I'm seeing. But to have somebody tell you, hey, your writing is okay, but your photos suck.
I think that's cool, though, but I think that it's not my place to say, but I think that society needs more of that now as well. On both sides, no matter what you feel, it's people need the truth. We don't need the hard, straight truth. It's okay to dance around and still be sensitive to people's feelings about, hey, you're not good enough, or this isn't good enough, or any of that. There's ways to present that in a professional, kind way. Mm-hmm. But I think that's part of a reason with the society we're in, just in general, that it just stinks. You can't tell people how you really feel and what you think, that how your opinion, because it's you're either for me or you're against me.
No, but brutal honesty is good. I mean, we're brutal. Mike is brutally honest with all of us all the time and tells us how we suck. So I think it's important. I think it's important to have that that feedback, and just not everyone tell you, hey, you did a good job today, because that's our society nowadays. Everyone gets a trophy, pat in the back, and that's not going to make you better.
Yeah. We've got to be able to look at our experiences and learn from them and move forward. Sometimes that takes help.
Amen. So, Sean, you've given us some pretty good comparisons and pros and cons of each kind of format of a written and a digital format, or YouTube, if you may. How did the writing prepare you or hinder you when you started making that transition from like almost all written content to a video format?
Sure.
Was it easy?
Great question, Matt. I appreciate that. I think the interesting thing for that is, I learned my trade when I started at Police One, and I learned how to tell a story, and I learned to do it succinctly and get the most crucial information, stuff it in there, and get it over and get it done with, right? When I started writing for print publications, the word count went up. You look at your workday. If I've got an article that's due in a week and it has 1,000 words and maybe 10 pictures, that's one, right? print articles, they would run 2,500 to 3,000 words. And depending on the size of the publication, sometimes 20, 25 photos. And they
Okay.
better be good photos. How it prepared me, to answer your question specifically, is I learned how to tell a story, how to shape it, and how to really just kind of put it all together. And then and tone is one of the biggest things that aspiring writers have to learn. When you go from one publication to another, they will have very different tones. I'll give you an example.
Yeah.
One that a couple of you will probably remember. Mad Magazine, they had a tone, right?
Yeah.
And it was Alfred E. Newman saying, what, me worry? I'm not going to worry about anything, right? So very flippant, very cavalier, very funny. But then you go to a respected gun publication who's been out since the 1970s. That's a very different tone. You need to be professional. And then you go to Pew Pew Tactical, who has a very buddy tone. We're not going to use a lot of polysyllabic vernacular. We're not going to be super highbrow. We're going to be buddy. This is what's important about this. This is what you need to know. So I learned tone. I learned how to put together a story, and I didn't know how to put together videos. That was the challenge.
So like, how did that transition happen? Because obviously Pew Pew Tactical, like, I guess let's go back to Pew Pew Tactical. Like when Pew Pew Tactical first started, was it just a vlog? Like what? It wasn't YouTube yet. It was just still on like what, print, correct?
Yeah. So Pew Pew Tactical was just a .com, exactly. Gun blog that Eric Hung started and really went full time with in 2018. And there were a lot of us that were out working together at different publications. Jackie Billings, who's our managing editor, awesome lady. I actually went to work for her at guns.com and then followed her over to Pew Pew Tactical when she moved over there. And Eric, we were all at some of the same events together, so we got to know each other, got to hang out, and you find out pretty quickly the people that you like and you don't. For the most part, bunch of good people in this industry on the storytelling side of things. So that's usually not an issue. But we started out with just gun articles. And coming from Eric's perspective, it's pretty interesting because he wasn't raised in a gun family. So he didn't have his daddy telling him about this shotgun or that pistol or whatever else. He had to go out and figure out things on his own. And he thought to himself, man, there's got to be other people like me that don't know a whole lot and can find themselves quickly intimidated by the amount of information that you have to know to not put the wrong bullets in the gun. So he created the website with that goal in mind, to inform people, and it grew. We had a guy named John Curry who was doing videos up until about 220,000 subscribers, where that's when Pew Pew moved from California to Austin, Texas. And my transition was kind of interesting because I had done some stuff for ARFCOM, and they were part of Brownell's, the Bureau of Propaganda. So I was a member of the Bureau. I went out to the mothership in Grinnell, Iowa, and actually attended a mini filmmaking school, a video making school with Matt and a bunch of the other guys out there, and learned how to film, set up shots, edit, even do all of this stuff. And I was just overwhelmed. I was like, holy crap, this is a lot of work. This is a lot more work than it takes to go out, write a story about a gun, and then take a bunch of photos and make it palatable. So it was a huge amount of work, but I did create one video for ARFCOM, and that was right around the time, it was like 2021. I was basically done. My head was caved in from the changes that were going on in law enforcement and the kind of prevailing attitude about law enforcement from the public. And then just, 5 years of SVU just cooked me. I think I left and reached out and got a couple of job offers. and ended up coming to Pew Pew Tactical.
So Sean, I have to ask, because you're good on camera. Like, you're really good on camera. You're charismatic. Was that something that just came natural, or did you have to also get coached on that, and kind of did you come into your own?
There's I think two things that I attribute to that. One is I grew up with the first camcorders. So again, I'm dating myself, but my parents would put a camera in my face and I would just be a goofball. And that was also kind of a defense mechanism for me. It was like growing up, like being the funny guy. And I carried that through my law enforcement career. That helped me. So that, and having been through a lot of the things that I have and seen the things that I have, I wouldn't say fearless. I do have fears, but I can compare the things that I'm doing in front of me, like getting on a camera, and it doesn't scare me in the least. So
Yeah.
the only thing I worry about is going too far or saying something a little off color or something like that, like keeping in mind the audience and how it's going to be perceived. That's kind of a concern, but yeah, I think just being fearless and naturally kind of, being a goofball in front of the camera.
I think the next wave of YouTube content creators, as far as the gun realm goes, I think that next wave, it's going to be an easy transition for those who are law enforcement currently, because it's one of the only jobs that you're not paid to be in front of a camera, but you're on camera every single day.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
You kind of hinted at this, but I'll say it. But when, you're making a stop and you get out of the car and you're walking up, there's millions of different people, different personality types, different situations, and you have to be a jack at all trades so that that person safely leaves that scene and you safely make it back to your car and home to your family. So there is always, you have to be, I don't want to say you have to have a silver tongue, but you have to be a smooth talker, mm-hmm. and you have to be able to de-escalate to fight another day. And I think that pulling from all of those, like you said, pulling from all of those prior situations, whether it be just a beat cop, or it be SWAT, or it be SVU, or it be print, writing, and you actually had to think, how do I convey this emotion and this thought to this reader? Yep. And they just get it on black and white. And it actually works in your favor, amazingly enough, in front of a camera. You just have to get over that staring at that lens.
Yeah.
And it's like, if I can get over that and just somehow put some eyes on that thing and like, hey, that's a person, everything else, once you get past that hurdle, everything else comes supernatural. Because watching you on camera, it's what we strive to do.
I appreciate that. No, I do. And I want to reflect too, because you've given me a lot of praise during this podcast. And
we've all had our bad stuff too.
That's what I was just about to say. When I first started writing, I gave a couple of freebies away. I did some free articles, and then I learned from those and I improved. Right. And then I went to print, and I learned from those and I improved. And then I went to video and I sucked, and I learned from those and I got better. And, people are brutal occasionally in the comments. They'll come in and they'll just say the most horrific shit. And, and sometimes they're absolutely 100% right. The attitude is probably not earned, but they will give you that feedback. When I was an investigator, I spent a lot more time up close and personal with defense attorneys, and they are often thought of as the yin yang, right? Like that's the good versus evil. No, it's not like that. Sometimes it is, but they are there to make you better at your job. And that's the attitude that I took. And the good thing about it is, you don't want to focus on the past because you can tend toward depression, and you don't want to focus too much on the future because then that can lead to anxiety. But it's good to look back and see, oh man, I have come so far. And so I can appreciate why someone might think, hey, you're very accomplished at this. Yes, because I fell down and I broke my nose and
you put in the time and did the reps.
Yeah, like crashed the car, got out, it was on fire, but then I got up and I did it again. It's getting up, falling down 1,000 times, getting up 1,001, right?
We're in that phase of like, we're still crashing this car. It's no longer blowing up, but we still bump into stuff.
Yeah, sure. That's all part of it, man. This is the journey. This is what's beautiful about it.
For sure.
So would you say, Sean, like you're pretty experienced in both medias. Like, do you think people are more trusting in a written article or through video?
I don't know that you can quantify how people are more trusting one way or the other.
Okay.
Like I said, I think you'll find that the people who read articles tend to be older. Not 100%, but they tend to lean toward, those are the people who are going to send in emails.
Yeah.
They're going
to write a letter and lick the envelope.
They may not run Google, right? So they may send you
a
question. They might send you a question that could easily be answered with a Google search, but they're looking for more information. So, video has at least the opportunity to show things that you wouldn't normally see in a written product.
Right.
And but that's still challenging too, because we try to hit that 10, 12-minute mark and not, there are creators out there that make 30-minute videos, and a lot of people will look at that and just like, I don't have time for that. Like I got other things that I got to do. So it's always a struggle to try to get the most succinct amount of information that's going to convey the message that you want it to convey without being boring, and you don't want it to drag. But trust, I think people are going to follow you, and they're going to look at your stuff, and they'll make a decision. If people review guns and they never have any problems whatsoever,
bad sign.
I would have an issue with that, because we have problems frequently. We have failures to feed, we have failures to eject, we have multiple problems from multiple manufacturers, and we have to work through them. We have to diagnose them. Sometimes we send guns back to the company. So I think, if you run into that, granted, it's not sexy, but people want to know. They want to know,
right,
what are the odds that I'm going to go out and buy this pretty $600 gun and it's going to work for me, or it's not. So,
and some creators, I think like they feel like if a weapon they're using has an issue, that it somehow reflects badly on them. Like that thing has nothing to do with you as a creator. Like, you're there from a position to provide information on how it works and if it's going to continue to work. And sometimes, they shy away from it, or they hide it. Like, you lying to me about how good this is doesn't make you any better, and you showing those malfunctions or issues, that it's QC issues, doesn't reflect badly on you as a creator. You didn't build the damn thing.
Sure.
I want to interject, because I also think that also doesn't reflect badly on the company, and I think that's where the great divide is. I think that the new people that are coming into YouTube or any sort of digital media, and they want to be review guys, I think they're afraid to crap on the guy they're reviewing, even if they purchased it with their hard-earned money, because when the next company looks at it, they're going to say, oh man, well, they just completely killed this brand. I don't want them reviewing mine. So it's hard to get that next deal. There is a way to convey negative portions of a review in a positive light.
Having the benefit of working for multiple publications, some of them have been around for decades, there are policies in place when these types of things happen. And new folks might struggle, like you said, because of the wish to keep that relationship good. If Glock's going to send you a gun to test out and you don't have to pay anything for it, that is that much less writer expense that you have to incur before you get your check for that article, right? Yeah. So it's wise to keep those relationships going. But never at the risk of credibility, right? Because that's what we talked about in the beginning. Once that's gone, no one's going to listen to you. And Matt, like you said, some people might want to lean in on that because they're worried about it. And I get it. But in the long run, that would be a short-term benefit for a long-term loss. But the policy is simple. You reach out. Well, the first thing you do is when you have a problem is you work diligently to eliminate yourself as the problem.
Facts.
Right? Is there something that I'm doing wrong that maybe, I screwed up here? I go through a period before I take a gun out where I go through everything, make sure that it's ready to go, make sure that my optics dialed, make sure that I've got everything torqued to spec. But I'll still have Johnny, our videographer, check things for me. Like, hey, yeah, check this out for me, man. Am I doing this right? And then once I've eliminated myself as the potential input for all the problems, then I have to try to figure out, is it the magazine? Is it the ammo? Is it, any number of things? And then and only then, if we've had multiple problems, will I go back to the company and say very respectfully, hey, this is the issue that we had. Here's the ammo we used. Here's the magazine. This is the optic. This is the weather conditions that we were using. Would you like to move forward with this? We need to either repair this or replace it. We'll mention it in the piece once we go live with it. But with any luck, you'll send me one that does a lot better, and we can say, yeah, and it was resolved. And we don't shy away from saying those negative things, but we do it in a respectful manner. And I think everybody can appreciate that. And then they'll come back to the table when you need to work with them again later on down the road.
I mean, in reality, it's everything we're talking about is made by hand. It's made by man. So the odds of 100% of the products in anything, mistakes happen. We're all human.
Right.
It's how, I think, honestly, how we're judged is it's how we handle those errors and how we go back to those people and talk to them about it. And then it's their character on how they right the ship. And
sure,
as long as you're not pointing and calling names and saying, negative, most people are going to right the ship because it's, it's their business. Their name's on the line. They're going to fix it.
Right.
Yeah,
absolutely.
But we have a couple. I'm sorry to cut you off, Sean, but there's a couple out there. I want to hear your intake on this. There are some content creators out there that are probably paid, that are getting cherry picked items that are maybe not always being the most honest. And let's be honest, they're out there. I'm not going to name names. Like, how do you feel about that? Because I know what you guys do. You are putting out quality content that is honest, but unfortunately nowadays there are a lot of bigger content creators that are all about the paycheck, and these big companies are paying them. They're giving a cherry picked item that's the best. Like what's your take on that?
I think it kind of sucks because ultimately I don't feel like it's honest.
No.
But I'm not going to worry about somebody else. If somebody else is going to do a thing, how much time are we going to spend worrying about other people doing different things that we don't necessarily agree with? To me, it's unfortunate because I feel like it does have an impact. And when you have a consumer base, especially in the Second Amendment, that is a little bit suspect anyway about the things that are being fed to them. I think we should do things to engender and grow that trust rather than crap on it. And that's why I say I've been reviewing firearms since 2014, off and on, and I've had a lot of issues over the years. So I just have a hard time when I come across people who are just like, "Oh, this is amazing!" It's
never had any problems.
Never
30,000 rounds. Never,
Yeah,
30,000 rounds, no problems at all. Still looks brand new. Still looks brand new.
Yeah.
Cool.
Well, I'm excited to talk about that because we're talking about how certain creators don't have issues and they have this certain standard and they're held to that and other people aren't. I'm interested in hearing, I'm interested in hearing your thoughts as far as celebrities and their standards as far as, do you believe that celebrities are held to, I don't know, the same standard as the average citizen? We could say just across the board, but, in our realm, gun laws, you feel that celebrities are held to the same standard. And, if there's any examples you want to elaborate on, I mean, feel free.
Yeah.
Wait, before we do this, let's make sure.
There we go.
Yeah.
You got it, man. You got it. Fish on. I think yes and no, because as far as the standard goes, celebrity does bring with it a certain level of responsibility. And I feel like the more people who are listening to you on your platform, the more incumbent it is upon you to be sensible about things, be knowledgeable about things that you're speaking on. And you will often find me pushed into a place where if we're talking about a topic that I don't know anything about, I will just say, I'm sorry, I don't know anything about that, or I haven't researched that, or I don't have an opinion about that. I don't have to have an opinion.
That's key.
But very often celebrities find themselves in that place where they feel they have to opine, and they've got to share their opinion. And especially when it comes to firearms, unfortunately, very often you will hear things that are just completely wrong. As a segue, I'll mention Alec Baldwin, because I think most of us who own a single action revolver, as soon as we heard his defense in the Rust shooting, if we didn't know it by heart, we suspected, and then we went to the safe and confirmed, will that hammer fall if I don't pull the trigger? No, absolutely not. But we live in a world where we have all of these outputs, all these people clamoring to hear your every word, and the most vociferous defense is perhaps more effective, right? And what that's going to do is it's going to tell a lot of uneducated people that, oh, well, yeah, that must be some kind of terrible mistake, and in this case, he was allowed to say that stuff because, obviously we have the First Amendment, but it was inherently false. Like, unless there's some kind of malfunction in the gun, and I haven't gone through the records of the trial, so I don't know that to be the case. But we know how a single action revolver works, and that's just not what he offered as a defense is not reasonable. Now, moving on to do they receive less than fair or more than fair treatment? I think in the case of that ultimate resolution of that trial, he did receive some unfair treatment. I'm going to dive into the world of the prosecutor for just a minute here, because it's important to set this up in order to tell you exactly what happened with this case. The great weight of responsibility lies on the state, right? We have the responsibility to take the charge and bring it against you and apply that to a jury. And with the judge mediating to play fair to both sides, we have that responsibility to prove the truth. That's what happened, and provide that information to the case. To combat the unfair advantages that the state has, right? They have all the resources. They have all of our taxpayer money. They have investigators, people like me. They have victim advocates. They call in experts. They have all of these things that they can apply against you. And it sucks. Like, if you're the defendant, you're going to find out just how quickly a money game it becomes, depending on what kind of charge you have, right? And this is a homicide case. So the great weight is balanced in some parts by the Constitution in making the offense, the prosecution, provide every single shred of evidence that they overturn in their case. And I mean everything. If it's inculpatory, right, which means, yeah, he probably did it. That's the kind of evidence that we look for, right? That's what we want to see. But it's especially important if it's exculpatory. And what happened in the Alec Baldwin case, it sounds like there were multiple instances of the prosecution not handing over something through the process, which is called discovery.
Right.
And that's constitutionally guaranteed. That's not something that we can mess around with, right?
Yeah.
If you don't hand something over in discovery, and let's say that it's inculpatory, right? Like it doesn't look good for the defendant, but you failed to disclose that to the defense, the judge can hold sanctions against you. And now maybe if you want to supplant this motion, or if they can withhold evidence, they can say, no, sorry, I know you really like that shiny piece of evidence that points to the defendant's guilt, but you can no longer present that because you withheld evidence previously. God help you if you withhold information that is exculpatory, that would help the defendant prove their innocence. Now you're getting into a constitutional violation. It's a Brady violation, right? And that you can lose your law license. You can be sanctioned. There's all kinds of things that can go wrong. And I've worked with so many good prosecutors over the years. And whenever we would come across something that we didn't think was relevant to the case, the smart ones would always tell me, guess who's not going to decide whether that's should go out in discovery or not? We aren't, right? It goes into the case. The case gets sent to, and in discovery, you have records people that you rely on to send that stuff to the defense. They have to have everything. So unfortunately, if you want to get into the meat and potatoes of the matter of how culpable is he for pulling the trigger on somebody, I think there's some mitigation when you're shooting a movie, but we still have those 4 firearm safety rules that we have to live by, right?
Yes.
But I still believe that because the prosecution failed to hand over evidence, they violated discovery, and so that is a just outcome. Does it suck for the family of the victim? Yeah, absolutely. Is it a failure? It's not a miscarriage of justice. It's how our legal system works, and it's designed to defend and protect rich people and poor people alike.
Well, yeah, I just hate it because when it just seems, and I mean, you can't pick and choose when it comes to the state, but thinking about your prosecutor, if they were more, I don't know, gun friendly, maybe you'd know a little more.
Yeah. I don't even know that it goes into their knowledge of firearms. I think, if you get a little cavalier, and instead of making the decision like, hey, we came across this, that, or the other, oh, that's not relevant. That's not for you to decide.
Right.
That is absolutely not for you to decide. And she learned a horrible lesson, in a very public format.
So I have to ask Chunks, I don't know. I'm not, especially on this case that we just talked about, but in general, we talked about celebrities, which are usually wealthy, and there's usually civil cases involved too. Like, is it just easier because at the end of the day, they can write a check and then things get pushed away because they can write a check? Or is that just, what's your opinion on that?
I think if they can write a check, they can also write a check to defense attorneys, right?
Yeah,
who are going to litigate for them.
Yeah,
that's true.
So it's not always an easy win. Like you can't just assume you're going to have to meet some standard where you prove that they were liable somehow. And this criminal case doesn't necessarily absolve him from a finding of liability,
right?
Because he's still
civilly.
He still had a gun in his hand. He was the one that caused it to fire, however you want to get to it, and someone died as a result of that negligence. So that's still out there potentially, and I don't think that anyone will necessarily come to his aid or defense to try and stop that, or I don't think he'll receive any benefit from being a celebrity because of that.
Well, what's interesting to me though is, in the justice system, it's all about standards and precedents that have been set already. But it just reminds me in my, I don't know, teens growing up, or maybe it was, I don't know, right before teens somewhere. I remember Bruce Lee's son, Jet Li, getting shot on a set from a dummy round. Yeah, Brandon from a dummy round, and part of the shrapnel hit him.
Yep.
And so
that's the story anyway.
Yeah, well, I never paid too much attention in the Baldwin case about that, but I'm like, okay, well, the standard's already been set. So as far as Hollywood goes, this is it's a different ammunition, of course, but this is a standard that's already in place. We've already
Right.
had this issue happen once,
Right.
so if it's happened again, putting my law enforcement hat on, like, all right, now we're establishing a pattern.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So at this point, and Alec Baldwin, and to be completely honest, is not one of my favorite people in the world.
Sure.
But in his defense with this legal precedent, now one could say that it's actually nowhere near his fault, because this has already happened again, and this is on Hollywood, and this is on the behind the scenes people, and this precedent now has happened twice. So Hollywood better change how they,
Oh yeah.
all of the things that happen in the background that no one sees before the record buttons even hit,
Yeah.
Mhm.
because now we're two in.
How was he handed something that could potentially let loose
Oh,
of
right.
a projectile in the first place?
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
one of the big things that you have that's an interesting power dynamic is you have a very young female armorer who should have had absolute say. Can we agree on that?
Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
Should have had absolute say on
Yes.
what happens with firearms, right?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
But you've
Yes.
got people like Alec Baldwin who's directing this thing, right? And probably making decisions. I don't know that he made decisions that were relevant to that, but that could have been a power dynamic where she would have felt like, oh, okay, well, we better push forward with that. One of the other actors, Jen Ackles from Supernatural, he was in the movie. And I heard that, I read one of the things that they had an issue on was there was live ammunition in his gun belt. It was found.
Oof.
And that was one of the things that wasn't discovered. So again, I don't know that for a fact. Like I haven't read the entire case, but those are the kind of things that, when you get into that relationship, that's going to play a role. And granted, the armor had an enormous amount of responsibility and absolutely failed in the job.
Well, I mean,
I hate that.
moving forward, hopefully we can fix those problems. And but Sean, I want to transition a little bit because I wanted to get back on Pew Pew Tactical. Like,
Sure, man.
we know where you guys are at right now. Like, future wise, next couple of years, next year or so, is there like an evolution of what you guys are doing? Are you staying steady in what you're doing, or is there kind of like a growth factor where you guys want to do something else or help promote the 2A community in another realm?
We had some pretty significant growth in the last couple of years, and it has tapered off. It's much slower now, but it's steady, and it keeps moving in a positive direction. I'm all about that. I think one of the things that I have proven over the years is when I get into something and I care enough about it to make an effort at it, I'm going to get better at it. And I feel like I'm just now starting to get okay at what I'm supposed to be doing. And I just want to continue to improve. If they need me to serve in this role and continue to do YouTube videos, then, I've got to try to eat responsibly and continue to work out and not eat everything that I want to or drink everything that I want to and still fit into a 2X shirt and get out there and keep doing it, man. And as long as we have people supporting us, on the website and social media, then I'm going to keep doing this because it's a lot of fun for me.
For the new creators, for the new guys that say, "Hey, I'm inspired by Pew Pew Tactical. I'm inspired by the other guys that are out there that have the big followings." What advice would you give those guys that are new to the space? And why don't you think that a successful move out of the big 3 or 4 into something else mainstream happens sooner than later?
Sure. I think what I would tell new folks coming in, it kind of depends on what you want to accomplish. If you just want to be a content creator and not necessarily work for a publication, then figure out a way that you can use your talents and bring something that's not being done. Because there's a lot of people out there, there's a lot of old white dudes with beards out there, making this kind of content. So how are you going to be different? How are you going to be unique? I would say that if you're going to come in and try to work for a publication, cling to the truth, tell the truth, do it respectfully, and you will earn people's respect because they will trust you as a source. And they won't have to worry about whether you sat on that gun and said you shot 500 rounds, but you had 17 malfunctions and you didn't say anything, right? Mike, I'll answer your second part of your question. I think it's a very simple answer as to why people are not going to those other mediums, and it's simply a business decision. Pew Pew Tactical is out there as a publication. Our goal is to provide money, to provide information on
money. I'll take some.
I was thinking, we do this for money, right? We do
For
this
sure.
for money.
Yeah. For sure.
We all are out there to make money, and we just have leaned in an area that we're very passionate about. So we're fortunate in that sense. We make affiliate sales. So our goal is to drive people to the content that are going to ultimately make a purchase decision. Go out, click on that link, and go out, and we get a tiny percentage of that sale. In YouTube, you have limited access to that, but it is the platform. So it's basically a business decision. And other platforms don't either have the bandwidth or they have other problems, and they just don't have the audience. They do not have the audience. And the audience is your customer base, and it's your client list, and it's all of these things that are absolutely fundamental to doing business, especially for gun tubers. So it's crucial that we have to be where the people are, because if we're not, then, I could go into my closet and talk into my phone and give a gun review. Nobody cares, right? You got to have someone who's willing to listen to it and then potentially make a purchase decision based upon the information that you're providing.
Top 5 guns. You got 5 guns you can keep for the rest of your life. You get nothing more. Ammunition cost is irrelevant. What are the 5 guns that you're taking with you?
Yeah, so pistol is going to be a Staccato P. I know that there are other models out there that are super fancy, but holy crap.
The P wins.
Staccato P, man.
He's pretty lit, yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Good choice.
Got to have a shoddy. So I would say, while
people forget about the shotgun. People forget about it.
You're crazy? Come on.
They do. They forget.
I
SWAT guy, man.
Absolutely love shotguns. So I love my 870s, but right now I'm extremely high on the Beretta A300 Ultima Patrol.
Man,
good choice.
Yeah, got to have an AR-15, so I'll leave that open. I mean,
yeah. You can say kind of the designation like barrel length. You can kind of say a setup, but we don't have to go brand.
Yeah. I've got a BCM Recce 9 that is nice and short, and it's in 300 blackout, and it's got a suppressor on it. So
boom.
Love that.
Shorty.
Love that rig. Man, I got to have long range. I just started getting into long range, so some kind of bolt gun. I'm actually just reviewed the Aero Solus, and I was so impressed with that, dude, that I reached out to them to do some more work with them. I'm going to build one in 6.5 Creedmoor with a 26-inch barrel. Like I'm going
there you go.
Full out on that thing.
Reach out and touch it.
Yeah, dude, I love my Solus. Soluses are great. So we got your pistol, we've got your shotgun, we've got AR, and we've got your long range Aero Solus.
Okay.
You got one more.
Man,
tough call.
Ma Deuce.
Yes.
Yes. I think Sean, you just had the best picks. We've had
the best pick because
we've got Clint Morgan on. We've asked how many people this? Like Mike.
We've had so many people, and everyone is
nobody's chosen a machine gun.
No, and it's like, oh, hey, I want these 2 pistols and this AR and this AK, and I'm like, all right, well, that's kind of, repetitive, but whatever.
Yeah.
And they're going in. It's like, oh, well, typically we set people up to say they either forget a long range gun or they forget a shotgun. So we always get to say, well, you hate one of these. And they're like, no, we don't.
No, I don't.
You completed that marathon without a hitch.
Yeah.
But now I'm going to give you a rank 'em because you made a reference earlier, and I'm going to go back to this because you tugged at my heartstrings. You made a Indiana Jones reference. Raiders of the Lost Ark, Temple of Doom, Last Crusade, the Alien one, and then the Dial of Destiny. I forget the Alien one, but I know you got those 5. Out of those 5, which is your favorite?
I love Sean Connery. I was actually named after Sean Connery, but I still think I have to go with the original Raiders, man. That one it set it off for me.
Heck yeah.
Okay, that's a great answer. I heard it and I was like, I got to bring this up later because man, I was so excited when the 4th came out, and then I realized I watched it all the way through and was like, this is so great. And then it was Aliens.
Yeah.
Are you kidding me? Like, all right, I'm done.
Nah. Sean, man, Sean, I'll tell you, we've appreciated having you on today. We could probably talk for 5 more hours, which actually you have the official invite to come back again on Whiskey and Windage.
Right on.
But until we get out of here, man, because obviously if you've watched to the end right now, and almost no one does, we appreciate it. But Sean, tell us where they can find it. It's true. Sean knows the watch times, but
click-through rate, man.
Yep.
But Sean, where can people find you if they don't know already, which they should know?
Sure. Yeah. pewpewtactical.com. Same on all of our socials too. But my personal page is The Real Shooter Sean on Instagram. That's where you can follow me for my hijinks and madcap addicts.
I love it too. That's my favorite page actually. But Sean, thank you once again on behalf of Mike, Matt, and myself. Thank you for coming on Whiskey and Windage. You are invited back anytime.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it for having me.
Later.
We want to thank everybody who has stuck it out this far in the show. We had a great talk with Sean. What an easy guy to talk with. Really charismatic, had great vocabulary. I'm sure we missed a lot of the big words he used. But if you've stuck it out this far, we appreciate y'all as well. Mike, Adam, how did the show go? What do you guys think?
Man, Sean is just an encyclopedia of knowledge when it comes to firearms, but also all sorts of content creation in the two-way realm, whether it be the print media or it be digital media or it be video, you name it, he's done it. And not only has he done it, he's done it well, and he's thriving and helping Pew Pew Tactical, on their still climbing upward trajectory. I mean, great all around show. He's welcome back anytime.
Amen.
Adam?
I mean, Mike, you summed it up. I mean, he's a friend of the show now. Good dude. Welcome back. And there's not much more to say. Mike, you summed it up. And Sean, you're welcome back, bro.
Amen. Well, it wouldn't be a Whiskey and Windage episode if Adam didn't take us out.
Guys, like I always say, stay dangerous, carry a weapon. We'll talk to you soon.